he was Vietnam's top man at the United Nations. And now Minh takes the helm of ASEAN.
The need for better coordination, the synergy.
How will he navigate the turbulent waters of the region as the grouping's vision for an economic community takes shape? ASEAN's new Secretary General speaks exclusively to Channel News Asia in the interview.
Next decade is going to be more challenging than the past decade. ASEAN will have to maintain our centrality more effectively than before. Superpowers are coming in. This is the center of gravity of the world.
That parting shot by Dr. Surin Pitsuwan set the stage for his successor and ASEAN in the next 5 years. 61-year-old Minh is the first Vietnamese to helm the regional grouping, a position rotated among the 10 member states. The career diplomat is no stranger to international diplomacy, having spent 7 years as Vietnam's permanent representative at the United Nations. He was twice chairman of the UN Security Council in 2008 and 2009. Mr. Minh was Vietnam's deputy foreign minister before taking up the post of ASEAN Secretary General. He is taking charge of the organization at the most critical juncture. During his tenure, Mr. Minh will have to oversee the successful formation of the ASEAN Economic Community by 2015. It is by far the most ambitious project undertaken by ASEAN, a region now seen as a new growth center of global commerce. His immediate task, however, is to get ASEAN and China to agree on the code of conduct for the South China Sea. And to do that, Mr. Minh needs to put ASEAN's house in order following last year's unprecedented show of disunity in Phnom Penh.
Secretary General, thank you so much for joining in the program. Mr. Minh, you said you were struck by the feeling of togetherness when you first arrived in this ASEAN Secretariat building.
Here we have about 200 employees in the Secretariat, and you see how they mingle. Without their telling, you will not be able to, to tell if one is from a particular country, or the other is from another country. But you see, some kind of ASEAN identity that is emerging.
You also said that there's a need to speed up efforts towards an early start of negotiations with China on the Code of Conduct on the South China Sea. What steps can we expect to see in the coming weeks and months, as you said that you want efforts to be speed up?
We see an organic relationship between the need to speed up our efforts in building the community and that of resolving the South China Sea issue. ASEAN does need an environment of peace and stability so that they can focus on carrying out those prioritized programs in the community building process. Here we see the urgent need to see an early conclusion of a code of conduct on the South China Sea. We are optimistic we can keep progress in this process. On the part of ASEAN, we are ready. We have got our common position, and we are expecting that China will early engage with ASEAN in this process of negotiations.
So you sense a changing mood in China to start an early negotiation with ASEAN collectively?
In their policy statement, the Chinese leadership mentioned one of their priorities is to strengthen relations and cooperation with neighboring countries. And I would say that while a strong, united, and stable ASEAN is in the interest not only of the ASEAN countries, not only of the members of the association, but also of the neighboring countries, and of course of China. And if China and ASEAN are able to resolve this issue in a proper manner, if they are able to reach agreement on a solution based on the fundamental principle of international law, of respect for the United Nations Charter, of fundamental principle of non-use of force and self-restraint. Those are mentioned in the 6-point ASEAN principle on South China Sea. We are able to ensure that the relations between ASEAN and China, between China and the neighboring countries go in the right direction.
Observers have said the concerns about big powers using ASEAN members as proxies to further their own interests. Is it possible actually for member states to rise above their own national interests and put ASEAN interests at the forefront?
In history of ASEAN, it has been always the case when when we are united, then we are strong, and when we are united, we make progress. So it is only natural that when ASEAN is at the center of growth in the very dynamic East Asia region, and in the wider Asia Pacific region, it gets the interest of the powers of many other important countries. It is important that ASEAN is able to maintain its centrality. It is important that ASEAN is able to play its central role in maintaining international, regional peace and stability. It's important that ASEAN is able to maintain its centrality in the regional mechanisms.
As the person at the head of the central organ of ASEAN, Lương Minh has the arduous task of coordinating the policies of the 10 member states. This involves almost every issue: economic, security, and social. The Secretary General serves the member states and reports to their leaders. But the role of the Secretary General has evolved and attained growing importance beyond just coordinating policies. The new global landscape and the central role ASEAN plays in the regional architecture have placed greater responsibility on the Secretary General and the Secretariat. Before handing over his duties, Mr. Minh's predecessor, Dr. Surin Pitsuwan, called for the strengthening of ASEAN's chief office and the Secretariat. He felt this would make ASEAN more effective and nimble in facing new challenges. And given the new realities, there have also been calls for the grouping to revisit the ASEAN way of arriving at decisions based on consensus.
How would you describe ASEAN today compared to when it was first founded 4 decades ago?
When ASEAN was founded in 1967, it had only 5 members. And the then issue, the most important issue then for ASEAN was the one of ensuring peace and security. We are dealing with almost every issue: political, security, economic, trade, investment, social, cultural. Now every year we have about 1,100 meetings, and those meetings, we discuss, as I said, almost every issue. ASEAN is now like a smaller United Nations, so it demands of us more efforts, and especially the need for better coordination, the synergy, and coordination between the various departments of the Secretariat, coordination between the Secretariat and the member states.
One would expect, sir, that with more issues on board ASEAN and on the table, things get a little bit more complicated, and therefore it put pressure and tension into the relationship, and we have seen that in a couple of years.
The work we do now is, the kind of work that involve many areas, many agencies in each member state. So the need for coordination is even much greater, and of course is then much more difficult. But on the other hand, it reflects the growth, the maturity of the association, in the sense that we are able to, and we are interested in engaging in our cooperation in all those areas that we're not we're not able to do before.
How do you see your role then as ASEAN Secretary General now that is the most exciting and most challenging times for the region?
Well, the role of the Secretary General is to support and to coordinate the efforts, the measures agreed upon by the member states. And I'm assuming my task at the time when ASEAN is midway in its process of building the ASEAN community, and on all three pillars. And given the modest level of implementation, and given the challenges we are facing ahead of us in carrying out the remaining measures in the blueprint, the leaders of ASEAN have decided to push back the deadline for achieving the community till December 2015 instead of January 2015. It does not mean that we have one more year actually. Given the enormous amount of work we have to accomplish for the next coming 3 years, and my priority would be strengthening the coordination between the Secretariat and the member states in the process of building the community. We are to see that we have progress, it's coordinated progress on all three pillars, because the lack of progress on one pillar would not ensure that we have sustainable progress.
You spent quite a considerable amount of time at the United Nations. How has your time there shaped your views on diplomacy and consensus building, which is quite a requirement for ASEAN, isn't it?
At the United Nations, you have the system of voting on resolutions and decisions. At ASEAN, we work on the principle of consensus. But what is common in the at both forums, which is that the only decisions enjoying the support, the widespread support, ideally the consensus of all member states. Then you have it implemented, and also at the United Nations you see the difference between the General Assembly and the Security Council. While any resolution, any decision adopted by the General Assembly may be of important political significance, but it's not binding on the part of the member states. While in the Council, it is another case. In ASEAN, always it is a win-win the solution of any issue, because any decision, any important measure we undertake, it is on the basis of a consensus. So it will have the support of all member states.
Observers have called on ASEAN to actually try and revisit the ASEAN way, and here I mean doing things less consensual to make it more effective. Do you believe that ASEAN way needs to be fine-tuned and move away actually from consensus building?
Always anything needs fine-tuning, as we try to improve our work. But I think basically the principle of consensus has been serving ASEAN well. I mentioned the possibility of implementing whatever measures or decision we agree on, and it is the principle of consensus that has been working effectively in this connection. On certain economic issues, we need fine-tuning to serve both the purposes, effectiveness, and possibility of implementation.
You are saying that you agree with the fact that ASEAN needs to be a bit more flexible in arriving certain decisions, not just based on consensual.
No, the principle of consensus, it is in the charter. It is a basic, principle of ASEAN work. But I mentioned, it is important that the process of consultation and the consensus, the process we engage in trying to arrive at consensus can be improved.
ASEAN Economic Community 2015 is not too far away. What has been the progress so far? Are we on track? What are the main challenges that ASEAN needs to overcome in the coming few years before 2015?
No, we are not on track. So a lot of work is still to be done. One of the major challenges is that while we have been able to agree on many measures, we have been able to adopt many treaties and agreements. The pace of ratification, of course, for implementation on the part of the member state is rather low, and that's what I think an issue that need to work on. For example, the issue of removing trade barriers. While we are trying to establish a common market, a single market for ASEAN, a single production base for ASEAN, these have to be overcome, and for many countries it is still a problem for themselves to overcome, and they have to be overcome if we are to achieve the target of having the economic community by 2015.
That is the nature of ASEAN, isn't it? It is about getting all the member states on board, but member state has to go back to their respective countries to get it ratified, and that is a process that is slowing down ASEAN progress. As ASEAN collectively wants to move on, there would be process like this that need consensus and going back to each capital.
On the one hand, we are seeing the difficulties, the challenges ahead of us. Of course, would need our greater efforts to overcome. On the other hand, you may be aware that the deadline for building the community has been put forward. It was for 2020, and the leaders of ASEAN would not have decided to push forward the deadline if they were not seeing the possibility of us in achieving that target, and that reflects the determination and the resolve on the part of the member state in this connection, and I think I can be optimistic. It is also necessary to point out that the community would not be the end of ASEAN's process of integration, but rather the success in building the community would have determined, the way that ASEAN will move forward in the period beyond 2015.
What does this mean for the citizen of ASEAN when eventually the ASEAN Economic Community come to fruition? Will economic benefits alone be enough to pull the 600 million people in the region together?
If you look at the process of reform in many countries and the process of integration of many organizations, they start with economic integration and economic reform. So the benefits, economic benefit that people of ASEAN enjoy in this process will help further the process of integration in other areas. The success of us in building the economic community is very important in determining the success in our efforts in building the community overall.
If you meet someone on the streets of Manila, just an ordinary person, what would you tell that person about ASEAN?
ASEAN is an association of member states with people who share the same aspirations for peace, stability and prosperity. And ASEAN is an organization of member states whose people see the need of fostering solidarity, unity, and who conceive that only with unity, with solidarity, then they succeed.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time in joining the program.